So, moving right along, we've come to our next session on global and Asia-Pacific travel market trends and insights. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Director of Business Development for APAC at Expedia Group Media Solutions. A big round of applause to Ms. Celine Wickerhoff.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. Thank you, distinguished hosts. Datuk Musa, I'm putting my hand on my heart. Other side, actually. This is where is the heart. And thanking you all for letting me be here. Thank you, distinguished guests. I'm so happy to be here with you all. My name is Celine Wickerhoff. And I'm originally from Belgium. But over the last couple of years, I've been living in Asia. I've been living initially in Malaysia and now living in Singapore. And I've been with Expedia Group for 12 years, of which 8 years with Expedia Group Media Solutions. With my team, who are based across Asia Pacific, we work with brands, like many tourism boards and tourism management organizations, to connect them with our global audience of travelers through mainly strategic advertising campaigns, strategic advertising partnerships, and to help them achieve their objectives. Well, I find that I have a really great job. I love my job. I get to travel a lot. I get to come to great places, meet new people, new cultures, get to eat a good food. I was going to tell Datuk Hamza that 1 hour after I landed yesterday in Kuching, I was at the local cafe, the Borneo Delight, eating the Sarawak laksa, which I've been looking forward to since I was here last in November. But one of the other things that I like about my job is that I'm a little bit of a geek, and a little secret geek, and I like that we have so much data at our fingertips that allows us at Expedia Group to tell a lot of great stories to our partners. That's exactly what I'm here to do today. I'm going to talk to you over the next 20 minutes about what we have learned and observed at Expedia Group in terms of the travel trends, the travel behaviors that have changed in the last couple of years. I'm going to be sharing some of the results from our third-party research and studies, as well as, and a lot, especially from our first-party data that we're seeing at Expedia Group. Now, why am I going to be talking about this data, and hopefully I'm not going to bore you with it, is to really to be able to understand the consumer, the traveler, and understand their behavior, their motivations, what's influencing them, and what we can do to react and hopefully anticipate in order to give them a great experience. Because if the travel has a great experience, if we make a happy traveler, that makes a more valuable traveler, which is good for all of us. So in short, if the traveler wins, we all win. Now, Expedia has a lot of data at our fingertips, as I mentioned. That is because millions of travelers are coming to our sites every day. They're coming for inspiration, they're coming for planning, they're coming for booking. And because of all of these searches and bookings happening on our site, we have access to 70 petabytes of data. Now, what does that mean, 70 petabytes of data? It seems a lot, it sounds like a lot. But just to put it into context, it means about 4,000 pictures taken every day for the rest of your life. Like, imagine the type of big phone you need for that, or how many selfies you need to take. So I'm going to be sharing some of that data, but also a lot from that research studies that I mentioned. So I have a few studies that I'm going to be referencing. One is our Traveler Index report. I'm sharing some excerpts from our Sustainable and Inclusive Travel report, our Travel Preference report, and our most recent Q on Travel Trend report. Now, there are going to be a lot more slides than in previous presentation, maybe, and it might, hope it's not too overwhelming. But don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you at the end on all of the data that is here. What I'm going to share with you as a QR code at the very end, so any of the reports or any of the data that I've referenced, you will be able to download them and take them home with you for free. So let's get started. The most important thing, and that you'll all be happy to hear, is that travel is back. The travel desire is back. And so when we did our traveler index report in the beginning of the year, we asked about the travelers' intent to travel. And we saw that 46%, so almost half of people, say that they were going to be traveling more this year than they did pre-pandemic. And they're also putting their money where their mouth is. Almost half, 43%, are also planning to spend more. We did ask the same question to the industry professionals, and they even thought that was going to be a little bit more. They were a little bit more bold, and they thought that 58% of consumers were going to be spending more this year than they did previous years. We also asked the consumers, why are you traveling? And they actually said that they want to prioritize self-care as the #1 motivator for travel this year. Now, during the pandemic, we saw that there was a real new preference and request from travelers to have more flexible options, more refundable options that became available. And that is something that we continue to see as an ask in the years after. So we saw that 2 years ago in our survey coming out really strong as a theme. We saw it last year, and we still see it this year when we ask travelers how important flexible options are for them. And so we really think that this is a trend that's going to stay far beyond the pandemic. And so as you can see here on the slide, travelers are saying, almost half are saying that they would refuse a non-refundable option for travel domestically, and a lot more of them say that they would refuse a non-refundable option for travel internationally. That's an interesting stat, right? So how can we accommodate to what the traveler is looking for? We asked the same question to the industry professionals, and they acknowledged, say, yes, we know the importance of flexibility. They also, most of them said we are currently offering flexible options, but only 3 out of 5, actually 63% said that we would continue to do so. So where is that gap? How can we meet in the middle? Now, what about loyalty? As operators, as businesses, we want loyal customers. That's what's good for us. And we see that actually through our surveys, 3 out of 5, so 75% of businesses have a loyalty program. However, only 44% of consumers say that they are part of a loyalty program. But those who are part of a loyalty program, they do value it. In fact, they value it more than they did pre-pandemic, and they're looking to book or to stay with providers that they are part of a loyalty program with. Also, Expedia Group is kind of jumping on that bandwagon of, hey, there is an opportunity here with travelers who are not yet part of a loyalty program. We have many brands within Expedia Group, some of which have a loyalty program already in different shapes or forms. Some of our brands didn't. But as of July, so in just a couple of weeks, we are launching a new loyalty program called One Key that's actually going to consolidate all of the loyalty programs within one brand. And why are we doing that? One, from a marketing perspective, it makes it easier for our consumers, our travelers, our shoppers to know that all of our brands are related. But especially, we're doing that to give options to what we call the everyday traveler, the traveler who travels a little bit, but not enough to gain status with one of the big loyalty providers, and they can still gain rewards and claim different options when they're booking through Expedia. Now, while the value of each dollar is still important to the travelers, we also see that travelers are choosing travel providers that align with their values. We see that 70% of consumers said that they would choose a destination or a travel provider that is more inclusive, even if it was more expensive. And 78% have already made a choice based on the visuals, based on the marketing, based on the ads they saw, and the representation that they felt while looking at them. And that number is actually higher for millennials. In fact, millennials say that 84% have already made a decision on where to go, which travel provider to stay with, or to book with because of the representation that they felt in the ads or the visuals. So organizations who are not inclusive or don't have inclusive practices might miss out. They might miss out on a demographic or a segment that are looking for those options. Now, the good news is that the industry professionals are aware of it. They are making changes. In fact, 3 and 5, 61% said that they have already made changes in the last year in order to make their practices more inclusive. On top of that, another 21% said they have plans to do so. So it's an important topic. Together with the topic of sustainability. In fact, it's on people's minds, it's on all of yours minds, it's one of the main reasons why you are here today. And when we looked at our sustainable travel report, we saw that 9 out of 10, the vast majority, and I was actually a little bit surprised by how high that number was, 9 out of 10 shoppers, travel shoppers, are looking for sustainable options. And in fact, they are willing to pay for it. 50% are willing to pay more for it. Funny fact, they're on average indicating they'll be willing to pay 38% more for a sustainable option. And you know how we understood that sustainability was such a high factor that travelers were asking for is when we looked at the reviews of Expedia when after they stayed at the hotel, we saw just throughout the course of the 2021 there are a lot of people were mentioning the topic of sustainability. So we caught on the trend. We thought that's something that's important for our travelers, and really it's important to all of you, and that's why we also created that study to know a little bit more. Now, I've shared with you a little bit on what we've heard from the industry, from our consumers through different surveys. We're going to share with you some of our more recent reports. It's really purely from our first-party data, and also most recent, so almost really fresh off the press. We make these reports quarterly to really understand what is the changing behavior, get right on it. In previous editions of the quarterly reports, we really saw that there was a sustained enthusiasm for travel, there was a higher resilience. There were also lengthening travel windows that we came out of that report in the previous quarters. We saw that there was a rise of flexcations. I'm not sure if you've heard of the word flexcation before. I'm sure you've all heard of the word bleisure, business and leisure. But if you're staying in a place a little bit longer for work, right, and say, hey, I might go and work for a couple of weeks or a couple of months in Bali or here in Kuching, why not? That might be a flexcation. You're working and you're leisuring flexibly. So let's have a look at what came out of that first quarter of 2023. And we saw that not only did the travelers indicate that there was a high intent for travel, they actually did so, right? So they were really searching for travel. Up searches and demand on our site was up 25% quarter over quarter and 10% year over year, which is really great to see that sustained enthusiasm for travel. Now, specific for this region, we saw that there was a 65% year-over-year growth on demand to this region. We saw that specifically because of the opening of the China region, of course, and we saw a lot of that demand coming from the US for the APAC region. We also saw that really travelers are continuing to book further in advance. We see specifically that the booking window for more than 6 months in advance are growing the fastest. We see that trend coming mainly from the Asia Pacific and Latin American traveler, that more of those are booking more than 6 months in advance. We also see that lengthening for a traveler from the Europe or North America region, but they're booking more 3 to 6 months in advance of their trip, and we see that booking window increasing. Now, where are the travelers booking to? So here you can see, actually in 2019, I wanted to share, kind of refresh our memory before we look into Q1 2023 numbers. We see here where are travelers traveling to from each of those regions. You can see here from 2019, out of APAC, Tokyo, Honolulu, and Bangkok were at the time in the top 3. If you see some of the destinations highlighted in blue, that means that was a destination that the traveler traveled to outside of that region. So for example, travelers from Latin America, they often travel outside of the region, which is why a lot of those destinations in that column are highlighted in blue. So what were the top destinations booked in the first quarter of 2023 for the different regions? For APAC, we really saw Tokyo, Osaka, and Seoul. We saw a mix of beach destinations, city destinations. We saw some long-haul destinations, travelers taking different choices for their travel. So I'm going to deep dive specifically into Asia Pacific. I'm going to show you what was the difference in the type of destinations that people chose in the first quarter of 2019 versus the first quarter of 2023, both on a country level as well as on a city level. So you can see in 2019, the countries booked was Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam. And then also the cities were Tokyo, Bangkok, and Chinese Taipei, while in 2023, that has changed a little bit. You can see there are some new destinations in the list, including Paris and Sydney. Now, how are the search patterns changing for people from APAC looking to go elsewhere? We see that before I mentioned that the demand for the searches to APAC was up 65% year over year. We also see that the demand for travel out of APAC, so outbound of APAC, rose in fact 210% year over year. We especially saw a peak around Chinese New Year, not surprisingly, that last 2 weeks from January, we saw a really high peak in searches, specifically for Chinese Taipei, but also Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. And our APAC travelers mainly traveler intra-region or inter-region. So intra-region within APAC or inter-region between other regions. And we actually see that at the moment, as we already saw by the list of destinations that APAC travelers prefer, is that there is still a higher demand and actually a higher growth in searches for intra-region travel versus inter-region travel. Now, who out of the APAC region are traveling most? We are seeing for 2023 that actually the Australian are really increasing their searches on our site. We also see high demand coming from Korea, from Japan, and Hong Kong and Singapore. And how far in advance are they booking their travel? So we really see that the search patterns have normalized a little bit versus 2019. That was a very different view during the pandemic when there was so much last-minute travel and almost nothing further out. But here you can see on that bottom graph for 2023 that it's about, you can almost split it into 3/3, right? That yellow last minute within 3 weeks is about 1/3. Then there's about 1/3 who book within 3 weeks and 3 months, and the last third is about booked 3 months in advance. So it's a little similar pattern that we are now seeing versus pre-COVID. And we talked a little bit about the outbound travel, so where are APAC travelers going to? What are their different trends? What does it look like when travelers globally are coming to our region? We have a look at average trip duration that is still up versus 2019. Not totally unsurprising because the average ticket prices for flights and the average hotel daily rates are still higher. Versus last year then, we are seeing that the trip duration is starting to decrease a little bit. The average ticket prices for flights are also decreasing, in fact now minus 20% versus last year. However, the average daily rates are holding pretty steady, or actually just 0.05% higher this year than they were last year. And then where are the travelers out of globally coming from when they're searching for and booking for our region of Asia Pacific? In 2019, USA is still a dominant market. It's also not totally unsurprising for Expedia, who has such a high share in the US. But you can see that this year, the Canada and the UK, so a lot more long-haul markets, are searching and booking quite a lot for our region, while Japan, although it was a really prime market in 2019, hasn't yet recovered to the speed that we might have expected from that country. So let's then have a look at similarly what are the destinations that global travelers are booking into APAC. On a country level, Japan, Thailand, Korea, we see this year on a city level, similarly Tokyo, Bangkok, Osaka. There's a few changes versus 2019, but it's good to see that recovery, and we see that there is different behaviors in terms of some destinations or some travelers are going back to their old habits, but there also are some destinations who have been able to change the narrative and really driving travelers to come to their destination and explore instead. Similarly to what we saw outbound, we have now looked at inbound. How far in advance are travelers booking for a stay in Asia Pacific? And here we actually seeing a really nice trend. That nice trend is what I call as a lengthening of a booking window and a search window. Why is that good? Is because more people book in advance, actually the higher the consumer confidence is. So you can see here that the 0 to 3 weeks, that last minute share has reduced a little bit, that yellow, from 36% to 33%, and actually more than 30% of travelers coming to APAC are now booking more than 3 months in advance. Now, I've shared a lot of data with you. I hope you've been able to digest it all. What I'm going to leave you with is just a few examples of how some of the partners that we've worked with have put these data and trends into action. How have they been able to create really inspiring campaigns to attract travelers to their destination? So for example, Tourism Fiji, great partner of ours, they've really used our native ads to kind of, through non-disruptive marketing, influence shoppers to come to their destination and explore. We've worked with London and partners through a really inspiring video series and around the Let's Do London theme. We've worked with Visit Panama with actually 3 influencers, of which one influencer was blind, and we've done a video series with them called The Next Turn. And if you don't mind, and I still have a couple of minutes, I'll show you this video. If we can get some sound on that. The visuals are pretty stunning. But this is actually the influencer you just saw here. He's a blind traveler, and he was really going to Panama to visit the destination with his senses, right? With smell, touch, sound, and using that in his stories to tell how great Panama was in the destination and really change the narrative of that destination, because Panama is often used as, seen as a very corporate world, but do you really know the nature that you can see there and the different experience that you can have? So we're always happy to work with these tourism organizations to change about the way that the destination might be viewed. Similarly, we worked with Visit Scotland and on a campaign that was really around sustainability, and it was called Leave No Trace. It's how you can travel without, without making too much of a negative impact on the environment and the destination. Or with Tourism Tasmania, for example, who really understood how important it was for that self-care, for that prioritization, that mental health, and worked on a campaign around that. So with that, I'm going to leave you these kind of key takeaways, but especially I'm going to share with you this QR code. So any of the reports that I've referenced, you can share. You can download. They're completely free. If there's anything you have any questions about or anything that you're looking to see for your organization or for your destination, feel free to find me anytime in the next couple of days. Thank you so much.